We're back again. It's Ham Radio Perspectives. I am Quin, K8QS.
And I am Tom, WA9TDD.
So this is one of the things that everybody in ham radio knows, CQ, CQ. But where in the world does that CQ business come from? We were very interested in that, did our usual dit and da research, which is impossible for anybody else to do better research on this than what we do, of course. And so we've got the myths about where it came from, most of those connected to our own urban legends in Chicago, and then the French connection. And then we've got the truth. Real quickly on the truth, and then we'll get into the myths about where CQ comes from. The true origin of CQ traces back to the Victorian era, long before anyone was operating a ham radio shack. Before we explain those real origins, though, let's cover the wonderful myths that became ham radio urban legends. Tom?
Okay, that first urban legend is the French connection. There's a persistent theory that CQ originated from the French word sécurité, meaning safety or, hey, pay attention. When pronounced in French, the first two syllables sound remarkably like the letters CQ, sécu,
Sécu.
sécu. Because French was the international language of, postal and telegraph services at the time, it's a very plausible theory. My choice, however, would be the French c'est qui, which means, who is it?
Yeah.
However, most telecom historians agree that it was just a convenient linguistic coincidence, and the British all stations abbreviation is the true root. I don't know how they get all stations from CQ, but hey.
We'll talk more about that. Yeah, we'll talk more about that. But it's interesting about the French controlling the language with postal and other communication and all, really dominant at one time. Okay, so now let's get into the second myth. And this is what we're calling the first Chicago myth. And the reason we're calling it a Chicago myth is because we grew up in Chicago, and this is what people told us, including bona fide hams. We didn't have extra class licenses early on, but you get the point here. So the Chicago connection, the second myth, I heard from somebody, Tom, and then other people confirmed it. So it had to be real.
So that they were all wrong.
They were all wrong, right?
Yeah.
It's a true urban legend, okay, that CQ came from the English term seek you, CQ. So if you ask most operators, I think even today, they will tell you that CQ comes from this idea of CQ. It's brilliant, intuitive, phonetic match for what the code actually does, broadcasting a general call into the ether, up in the airways to see who is listening. But historically speaking, CQ is actually a clever backronym. You ever heard that, Tom?
No,
backronym?
I never heard it until I heard you speak it.
Okay, well, I'm the professor here. It means a retrofitted phrase, okay, that came later. So sometime later, people started saying, well, that's what it's from, even though that's not what it's from. So that's the first, what we're calling Chicago myth, even if that was all over the country or all over the world.
Nah. The third Chicago alternative myth was that the letters CQ stands for come quick.
Yes, I heard that all the time, Tom. That's another thing. If I brought it up at one of the ham clubs, like at Elmhurst or Wheaton or whatever, they'd say, oh, yeah, CQ, that stands for come quick, come quick. I don't know. It's weird. So it doesn't. It's another myth, but let's get into where it really came from. Okay, the actual evolution of how CQ became the universal kind of greeting or calling that we now think of merely as a way of getting people to respond. So this is the UK, United Kingdom, landline telegraph area before radio. Long before wireless was invented, the early landline and the underwater cable telegraph networks in the UK needed a shorthand way to signal, attention, all stations on the line, prepare to copy a message. This reminds me of World War II movies where you hear that kind of thing. But by at least the 1870s, the British telegraph system had adopted the two-letter code CQ to mean exactly that. All stations, all stations. So if you're reading the mail coming in on a telegraph, a lot of that stuff you're not paying much attention. But suddenly when you hear CQ, it reminds me when I was working in radio in the early 70s, and we had a teletype machine and the news would come in on, and it was a number of ringers. One ringer, you pay a little attention. Two ringer, yeah. When it got up like a four ringer, holy smokes, there's something big on the news. And you would run to the telegraph, to the teletype machine. So CQ is what got everybody together. So in early telegraphy, the letter Q was frequently used to designate special procedures, signals, or brevity codes, which eventually became part of what we now know as the Q codes, like QRM, QTH, QSO, and so on. Because Q is rarely used in regular English text, and I can tell you that as a Scrabble player, it's rarely used. It's frustrating. It stood out instantly on the wire. So now we're telling the real story, beginning with the telegraph.
Right. And on a Scrabble board, the Q is worth 10 points. So you may have something there, yes.
And I'll tell you, QA is a word.
It is indeed, and so is QI.
Oh, you rascal. You must play Scrabble too.
I play Scrabble every day. It keeps my mind sharp.
As sharp as it can be.
I digress, but then we have the jump to wireless. And when Guillermo Marconi began commercializing wireless radio for ships in the early 1900s, he hired experienced landline telegraph operators. And these operators naturally brought their existing shorthand with them. In 1904, the Marconi Company officially adopted CQ as the standard general call for all ships at sea.
Amazing. Amazing. And so here's a bit of historical trivia tied into this. This is exactly how the original maritime distress signal went out. CQD. The Marconi Company simply combined the all station CQ with D for distress. It was heavily used, including for the Titanic, but I don't recall if they used it in the Titanic movie or not. But before being universally replaced by, you know what, SOS.
SOS. Yeah,
and then, of course, we get the adoption by amateur radio early in the 20th century, following the sinking of the Titanic. The 1912 London International Radio Telegraphic Convention met to standardize global radio laws. There, CQ was officially cemented as the international universal procedure for signaling a general call.
And then early amateur radio operators, eager to legitimize their hobby, simply have adopted the commercial and maritime standards of the day because, hey, CQ sounded like CQ. In English, it became perfect mnemonic for hams making a general inquiry.
Exactly.
So while it didn't originally mean CQ, seek you, in the 1800s, generations of hams have, effectively made it exactly what it means today.
Yeah, interesting. So we go back and change it. So this has been from Ham Radio Perspectives, where we look at ham radio culture, technology, and history. It's the history of CQ. It's fascinating. And hams jumped in there, and we took that as well from the general call, and now we use it. And by the way, it's not the same as QRZ. I hear people getting on, and they call QRZ when there's nobody out there. QRZ means is someone calling me. CQ means the general call for anybody to come back to. So that's it, gang. A little bit of trivia fun. Hope to brighten your day in ham radio, this glorious hobby. Ham Radio Perspectives. Again, I'm Quin, K8QS.
And I'm still Tom, WA9TDD.
And please subscribe, give us a thumbs up. We'd love it.